Hello 3 Mandela and welcome to your final maths lesson of the week. Today we are going to be looking at tables. Our learning objective is, can I read and interpret information from tables? In today's lesson we will be learning to explain how to read a table. We will then identify key information on a table, and we will add or subtract with the relevant data. Let's get going with our lesson starters. I'm going to read you the questions and then I want you to write down your answers on your whiteboard. Question 1. How many more children have brown eyes than green? You need to look at the bar graph and work out the difference between the number of children that have brown eyes and green eyes. Question number 2. What is 50p more than £3 and 65p? So you need to add 50p to £3 and 65p. Question 3. Divide 72 by 4. Question number 4. Write 572 in words. Let's look at your answers. How many more children have brown eyes than green? So if we look at our bar graph, we can see that 8 children had brown eyes. If we look at our green table, we can see that it's half way between 2 and 4. So 3 children had green eyes. 8 take away 3 is 5. So 5 more children have brown eyes. If you add 50p to £3 and 65p, you will have £4 and 15p. Question 3. If you divide 72 by 4, you will have 18. Check your spelling of 572. How did you get on? If there are any words that you found tricky, have a little practice of them for me. The table shows which teachers own different types of pets. Use the table to answer the questions. So we've got our table here with some information. Along the top, we've got some names of different pets: cat, dog, rabbit, snake, and bird. Then we've got the names of the different teachers and ticks to show what pets they had at home. We're going to use the table to help us to answer some questions. So question 1 says, how many teachers own rabbits? So I'm going to look at the table. Here it says rabbit. If I go down the column with rabbits in, I can see that 1 teacher has a rabbit. So I can write my answer for this. I'm going to write 1, and I'm going to write 1 teacher has a rabbit. It's important that you give that extra information in your sentence. Then I'm going to look at question 2. How many pets does Miss Lewis own? So I'm going to find Miss Lewis's name amongst all the teachers' names. So here is Miss Lewis, and I'm going to read across and see how many pets she has. I'm going to count how many ticks there are. 1, 2. And then I can write a sentence to say, Miss Lewis has 2 pets, full stop. My next question says, which teachers own dogs? So I'm going to look at the dogs and I'm going to read down the dog column and see which teachers have dogs. Oh, I've got a tick, so I'm going to write 3. Miss Williams. Then I'm going to keep going to see which other teachers have a pet dog. Oh, Miss Lewis. I'm going to keep going. Oh, and Miss Gossage have pet dogs. It's really important that you give that information in your question. Number 4, which is the most common pet? So the most common is the one that most people have. If we look down the cats column, we can see that 2 teachers had cats. If we look down the dogs column, we can see that 3 teachers had pet dogs. If we look down the rabbit column, we can see that 1 teacher had a pet rabbit. If we look down the snakes column, we can see that 2 teachers had pet snakes. If we look down the pet bird column, we can see that only 1 teacher had a pet bird. So which was the most common? So we can write dogs are the, oh, check your spellings. The spellings of these words are there to help you. Are the most common pet, full stop. Then I'm going to look at which teacher only owns 1 pet. So I've got to read across this time. How many pets does Miss Williams have? She has 2. How many teachers have, how many pets does Miss Lewis have? She has 2 as well. How many pets does Miss Amanpour have? Oh, Miss Amanpour has 1 pet, but we need to check and see if there are any more teachers that only have 1 pet. So I'm going to keep checking. How many has Miss Godgish got? She's got 2. How many has Mrs. Musil got? Oh, she's got 2. So Miss Amanpour has 1 pet. That's how we answer our questions about a table. The table shows the number of points scored during 2 weeks of PE lessons. Answer the questions about the table. So I've got my table and I'm going to use my table to help me to answer the questions. This is all about PE lessons. So we've got the name of our team going down in this column. We've got week 1 and how many points each team scored. And we've got week 2 and how many points each team scored. Question 1 says, what is the difference between Team E's points from week 1 to week 2? So if I look at Team E, here's Team E. I can see in the first week they scored 4 points. In the second week they scored 8 points. So I need to work out the difference between 4 and 8. I can write that as a subtraction calculation, which would be 8 take away 4 equals, what would the total be? 4. So the difference is 4 points. So then I can write the difference is 4 points. Then I can have a look at question 2. Which teams scored more points in week 2 compared to week 1? So we've got to compare the scores that the teams got in each week to see which team scored more points in week 2. Let's look at Team A. Which is the largest number? 10 is the largest number. So they scored more in the first week. Let's have a look at Team B. In the first week, they scored 5 points. In the second week, they scored 9 points. Did they score more in the first week or the second week? They scored more in the second week. So we can write down Team B. Let's look at Team C. In the first week, they scored 11 points. In the second week, they also scored 11 points. So the points that they scored each week were equal. Let's have a look at Team D. In the first week, they scored 14 points. Then in the second week, they scored 15 points. Which week did they score the most in? They scored the most points in week 2. So we can write down Team D. Then let's look at Team E. In the first week, they scored 4 points. In the second week, they scored 8 points. Which week did they score the most points in? They scored the most points in week 2. So we can also write down Team E. Let's have a look at our final team, Team F. In the first week, they scored 7 points. In the second week, they scored 9 points. Which week did they score the most points in? They had the most points in week 2. So we can write down Team F. Let's look at our final question. Which team had the biggest difference in points from week 1 to week 2? So we've got to work out the difference. So we're going to work through our table. Let's do this here, just like we did for that first question. So let's see what the difference is for Team A. In week 1, they scored 10. In week 2, they scored 8. 10 take away 8 is 2. So the difference was 2 points. Let's look at B. Can you work out the difference between 5 and 9 for me? The difference is 4 points. And to go back and write points here because it's important that we do that. Let's have a look at Team C. In both weeks, they scored 11 points. What's the difference between 11 and 11? They're exactly the same, they're equal, so that's 0. Then let's have a look at Team D. In the first week, Team D scored 14 points. In the second week, Team D scored 15 points. What's the difference between 14 and 15? The difference is 1 point. Let's look at Team E. In the first week, they scored 4 points. In the second week, they scored 8 points. What is the difference between 4 and 8? That's right, the difference is 4 points. And finally, Team F. In the first week, they scored 7 points. In the second week, they scored 9 points. What is the difference? The difference is 2 points. So, which teams had the biggest difference? If we look back at our results, that we can see that Team B and Team E both had a difference of 4 points. So we can write Teams B and E had the biggest difference? Let's look at our next question. This table shows how long it took Sam to walk to school each day of the week. Create a true or false statement about this table. So if we're writing a true statement, it's something that is factual, something that we can see on the table. If we're writing a false statement, it's something that we have made up. So I'm going to start by looking at Wednesday, and I'm going to think of something that I can write about Wednesday that is true. I'm going to write that on Wednesday, it took Sam 18 minutes to walk to school. So I'm going to write on Wednesday, it took Sam 18 minutes to walk to school in the morning. Then I need to write something about the table that is false. So something about the table that is incorrect. Let me have a think. On Friday morning, it took Sam 14 minutes to walk to school. On 20 minutes and 20 minutes on Thursday. It took him longer to walk to school on Friday morning. So it took Sam longer to walk to school on Friday morning. Is that true or false? It's false because it took him 14 minutes to walk to school on Friday morning and 20 minutes on Thursday. So it took him longer to walk to school on Thursday morning. Can you write down your own statements and post them on Tapestry with your work for me so that I can see these? Activity 1. You've got to answer the questions about the table. It says 5 children have placed their lunch order for the day. Answer the questions about the table. Question 2, activity 2. The table shows the cinema attendance for 2 different films over a week. Use your table to help you to answer the questions. Remember to answer them in sentences. Activity 3. The table shows how long Jay spent reading in the morning and afternoon each school day. True or false? And if it's a false statement, you've got to explain why it is false. Then your challenge questions. Shelley writes the following statements using the information in the table. Spot 3 mistakes she has made, and then Billy creates some questions using the table. Which of Billy's questions can be answered using the table? Cannot be answered using the table, sorry children. Explain why not. Remember to take a picture of your work and put it onto Tapestry.